Good morning, everybody. My name is Patrick Noel. I'm a system engineer with VLB Solution, and I cover Canada. And today, me and my colleague Justin Nagel, who's regional PLM for VLB as well, will be going and talking about PON deployment and really what needs to be tested so you don't have to return and complete the work. So no rework needed and doing it right the first time. So let's get started. Justin?
Thanks, Patrick. So we're going to dive right into PON deployment, what typical test scenarios look like, and how to test those. And before we get into what those look like, let's talk about some typical challenges that you might see when doing PON rollouts. So typically, some of the things might be too many repeat dispatches, issues with qualities of installs, high customer complaints. They have expectations for their service, and if they're not getting the speeds they think they're getting, or they're having issues within the home, that's going to drive repeat visits and cost certainly money to re-roll those visits. Not having common test practices, so technicians and contractors doing their own thing, and you'll have various issues that pop up in the field that aren't being covered the first time. No comprehensive reporting. So as a provider, you typically would like to know that the technicians are doing the work that they're supposed to be doing and you're getting good tests in the field, as well as not having without those tests and reports and collecting of data, you're not getting the key metrics as you roll out your services. So being able to see how many installs per day, week, month, year, etc., how many install failures are occurring, and why even, the quality of the install by technician, and even quality of install by area. So when all goes well, and what's the typical PON rollout and layout of the network look like? You can see from left to right, looking at the central office where the OLT would be, and going through the fiber feeder, down through the splitter cabinet, drop terminal. You have the drop section, could be aerial or buried to customer home, and you might have a slack NID or a termination point on the side of the home, or it might just be a slack loop inside to the ONT and the rest of the in-home setup with wired or wireless devices. And when all looks good, you can see some of the pictures there. Everything's nice and neat, tightly routed together and clean. But what if it doesn't look good? See some examples here. This may or may not look common. If it looks common, then this could be a challenge for repeat visits where technicians are using the wrong cable or wrong fiber, and they could be, stepping or pinching fiber in the office or in the cabinets when they're there doing work on subsequent customer turn-ups. So some of the options as you go through and turn up and do these service activations to your customers. Option one is, what if you don't test anywhere? What kind of issues and challenges is the technician running into? So looking at the fiber itself, you could have high failure rates just alone due to no light, low light, or wrong light. So the technician is just doing connecting up the fiber. He's not doing any inspection, so you could have dirty or damaged connectors. He's not measuring the power, so he doesn't know if he has light at the ONT. Maybe he does have light, but it's low. But again, in this scenario, he's not measuring, so he's unaware. Or maybe he has light and enough light, but it's actually the wrong light because it's coming from a different OLT card or wavelength. And then inside the home, there's always lots of issues inside the home, and if the technician is just doing plug and pray and not checking these things, it could drive subsequent rollouts because the service isn't working and the customer is unhappy. And those could be the Ethernet, you don't have connection to the internet, or the customer's getting low or not the speeds they're expecting per the service. And then same with Wi-Fi, no connection to internet or not getting expected speeds. So, visually here, what does that look like? You can see a lot of the red marks throughout the network here. And if you're looking at from service activation standpoint for residential and small business, typically those technicians are responsible from the drop terminal to inside the home. And so when they're outside either connecting or running a drop fiber, they might have the wrong fiber coming in from that OLT. They might have dirty, damaged connectors, so they're not getting light. They don't have enough light. And then inside the home, once they connect the ONT and the gateway, they might not have service or poor throughput inside the home behind the gateway, wired connection, and they might have poor throughput or Wi-Fi performance inside the home. And that could be due to too much noise, weak signal, just getting poor throughput based on the device. And some of the business impacts there are, from the technician standpoint, if there's an issue, they're not sure what's wrong. And so this could cause delays in the turnup, could cause service failures later. From a customer standpoint, you want the customer to be happy, so they're not calling back. So if they're dissatisfied, they're going to call and drive support calls and churn because they're unhappy. And from your standpoint as a provider, you want to know that the work's being completed and it's done right the first time, and having visibility in the field is important. So without testing and collecting that data, you won't know that. So let's get into some layering on some testing and what kind of differences that might look to the first option. So here, if we say, let's test optical power only, as well as inspection, now you can see we're starting to get more visibility in the network. So now, we'd be fixing the issue for no light or low light at the ONT because we'd be checking power. And inside the home, however, though, you can see that's still untested in this scenario. If we're only checking power at the ONT or up to the ONT, then you're not sure if you have the right Ethernet connection to the internet and getting the right speeds for the customer, as well as Wi-Fi inside the home. Next, option 3 here is, what if you are not only looking at the power, but verifying PON ID and still including inspection. So as far as the fiber outside the home, you should be having the right light. You should be having light and enough light, and as well as now looking at the PON ID coming from the OLT, verifying that not only do you have enough power, but it's the right light, the right wavelength. Still, though, we're not covering anything inside the home, so all of that remains untested, and you could have high failure rates inside the home. And then finally, what if you're testing everything along the way? Obviously, this is the best scenario. You get the plant fully tested, green check marks along the way. The technician is going to be confident, and the customer is going to experience inside the home now that they are getting the right speeds and they have connection to the internet. So based on all the reds we were pointing out before, now let's turn all those to green. And from a technician standpoint, he knows, again, he's all clear and tested. Ideally, you want to have simple, fast tests for this technician as well, easy to use and clear to understand. And that way he knows he's got the right fiber coming from the LT, got the right light, enough light, and behind the ONT and gateway, he's getting service, the max throughput that it should be getting, and there's no issue with any of the equipment, and Wi-Fi coverage throughout the home where the customer is going to be using their devices is well understood and meeting the expectations of the customer. So that way they are able to see that. You can issue them a report directly to the customer. That way you know that when you leave that they're satisfied and that they're not going to be doing calls for support because they did not understand or it wasn't tested up front. And then again, now since all the tests are being run and saved from a provider standpoint, you'll have confidence and visibility into the field that all of that's being completed. So kind of recapping some of the things we've hit here. So again, the outside the home on the fiber or up and inside the home to the ONT, that's color coded there with the purple. So checking power level, getting PON ID, making sure you got the right fiber. Then behind the ONT to the gateway, or even behind the gateway, wired connections, looking at physical layer, Ethernet layer, and a speed test over Ethernet. And then going through the home and verifying that you do have the Wi-Fi coverage and connection, as well as the speed test requirements that the customer is looking at for the service that they've purchased. And just wrapping all that together again with hitting all the paths throughout the home, as we pointed before, and an example of what that could look like for the user as they go through. Simple, one page tests that are automated and easy to understand, so that they're turning up the service right the first time and confident of that the service has been installed properly. And what if they run into issues on Wi-Fi? Having that next layer, some sort of Wi-Fi expert mode, is an important piece of making sure that the customer is not going to experience any issues after the technician leaves. And so you can see visually, as an example, if the technician's going through, making sure checking all the spots that the customer is going to be using Wi-Fi. If he's getting green check marks, everything's passing along the way, but runs into one issue or one or more rooms and gets a failure, that's kind of the stopping point sometimes. Maybe they don't know, or they start guessing what to do next. If they're using just some Wi-Fi capability from a phone, that's typically more basic and not going to get the results you would get with a Wi-Fi test device. And as well as it's going to depend on the instrument, excuse me, not the instrument, but the handheld device itself. So each phone or tablet or whatever is being used is different. So you'll get varying results by user. And having a standard, the same test equipment then is going to provide commonalities for the tests across the users, and as well as additional results, looking at some of the key areas such as noise and airtime, getting estimated throughputs as to what's being able to be achieved, the physical fire rate, and the throughput based on specific device antenna layouts and Wi-Fi chipsets, giving recommendations to the technicians when they do run into problems with any of these areas, and being able to locate those devices that are causing problems on the network. One of the major offenders are slow or old devices that are on the Wi-Fi network, which causes everything to operate slower for the customer on that channel. And then finally, again, giving all that additional information to not only the technician, but the customer as well, with a detailed job report.
Thanks, Justin. So we've talked a lot about, taking measurements, making sure that we have records for everything we do, and consistent way of doing the work and doing all the steps so that we have a consistent results, and also making sure that we can document all this. So right now we'll talk about the workflow or job management. So mainly what you need is for having a way to make sure that the technicians are efficient and have all the information they need to make the decision and the installation. you have to do all the tests, but also you need to have what we call a closeout test, which means some documentation that are going to be put into a report, right? So that you can either share some, I would say, summary report to the customer and have detailed report for your own company, so that you can see as a birth certificate what the service looked like when it was delivered to the customer. But then with that record on file, you also can start doing statistics, right? And provide some visibility for the provider with big data dashboards that would drive compliance, and also overall help improve the efficiency and also the service to their customer. Because if you see that you have a lot of tests that are done on Wi-Fi, and that Wi-Fi is failing more often than the rest, then you can focus on that area and improve your network so that this part is getting better over time. So having the documentation, all the tests the same, having all the information every time we do the work, providing that into reports and storing it into a cloud-based type solution to aggregate all that data and then be able to publish some report, that is very valuable for the improvement and the ongoing success of the deployment. So as far as the technician goes, they need some kind of a mobile app and a job management tool, so that the mobile app is installed on their daily devices, either Android or iOS, on smartphone or tablet. And one thing that could help a lot of the technician is to have an integrated job management. So if you have multiple jobs in a day, or doing multiple tests within a job, right? So it's very good to have something that is automated, right? And that will provide the technician on step-by-step guidance on what they need to do, right? And then once all those steps slash tests have been run, then they are saved automatically and sent into the cloud. You can also add a photo of the job or a photo of the site if there is anything that is typical or different for that site. And also, if you want, you could have also into the process, if you want, add a signature by the customer saying that they agree that the job was well done, right? All that would be documented into one report, one job, and that way, if the customer call a month later, you can always pull back that information and see what it was when it was delivered, and then when you do the same test and compare a month later, see what is different, right? If the customer has moved his Wi-Fi residential gateway or something like that, maybe has remodeled the room or something, so you would be able to see what is different, and then help the customer say, hey, because now you have a big aquarium in the middle of the room, now your Wi-Fi is not doing as good as it was because this is blocking signal. So there's ways of improving the relationship with the customer by having a lot more data on what you do. And the way those things are kind of put together is you have the test instrument that is connected using Bluetooth or Wi-Fi usually into a mobile device, either a phone or a tablet, right? And that phone and tablet, since it's connected to a mobility network, either 4 or 5G now, then this allow the test instrument to communicate in real time with a cloud-based solution in which the work order can be sent from the cloud into the mobile instrument and send that to the test instrument, so it can provide the method of procedure or the work order on what needs to be done. Also, the configuration of the test instrument, so that the instrument is always using the latest and greatest configuration as per engineering has been defined. And also, as soon as the job is done, all the data reports goes from the instrument into the mobile, into the cloud. So all that has to be flawless, easy, and with minimal intervention from the technician so that it is almost transparent for the technician. He just do the job and everything else is taken care in the background. So that's usually the best way to implement those kind of workflow is really that the instrument in the cloud and all the documentation is going in and out of the instrument by itself. So if you look at it, you can also create the job manually or have them created prior to the day of work of the technician, sent to the instrument. Then the technician can run the test, and when the test is complete, the results are automatically transferred into the mobile tech app, and then that goes into the cloud, and then you can have access to that documentation as soon as the job is done. So a manager could, if need be, if it is let's say a business customer and they need to have the report fast, they can get the report right away. Either because the technician can use his mobile device and send it by email to the customer, or in the back office they can close the work order and then send the report to the customer. So really the way it works is really the technician or the contractor does the PON, Ethernet, and Wi-Fi closeout test, and then can really record all the information for the site. You can have a signature captured from the customer approving the work. Then you can email the report in PDF to the customer. So the customer has a report, knows that the job has been well done, sees that everything has been taken care of, and at the same time, the manager and the service provider has visibility of all the tests that have been performed and can start doing some big data crunching, so over time can improve their current process and delivery. So that's pretty much how it looks a little bit. An example of that is that you have the work order summary, what was tested, how many tests were done, what passed, what failed, and which part of the network was creating those issues. So that's really easy after the fact to show some trends, right? Per day, per week, per month, right? How many jobs have done, what has passed, what has failed, and so on and so forth. Now, as far as Viavi PON, we have a lot of different products that can be help the technician to measure any of those different tests that we've talked about. So we have inspection tools, we have power meters, we have the Network Service Companion, which was pretty much doing everything that we talked about today. And we also have fiber-related products like OTDRs and remote fiber system test for taking care of all the PON deployment. So if you want, you can either go into our web pages to see our Viavi PON solution page by just clicking on the link here. Since you will have access to that presentation, you can just copy and paste this. Then we have the Network Service Companion product page, the mobile tech app for the App Store and the Google Play Store, and then our cloud-based solution, the Viavi Start Sync product, and the white paper for some of the things that you may want to look at for the PON. If you have any questions, here is the Canadian sales team. Paul Petrosino is responsible for Ontario and Eastern Canada. James is from Saskatchewan West, and then Derek is Manitoba and Bell, and then I am covering all the products for Canada. So if you have any technical question, you can contact me, or you can always contact our Technical Assistance Center at 1-844-GO-VIAVI if you have any product-related technical questions. You can get to them as well. So hopefully this was a good overview of what needs to be done in PON so that you do the job right the first time. And hopefully we'll see you soon and be able to have the product in your hands if you need to see what we can do for you. So I would like to thank you all for attending. Thanks, Justin, for helping me here with the webinar. And
Thanks, Patrick. Thanks, everyone.
yeah, and so have a great day and stay safe.